Ever wondered where U.S. passports might hit a wall? From mysterious no-go zones to politically tense regions, there are surprising places where American travelers aren't welcome. Why are these countries off-limits? And what are the reasons behind these restrictions? Buckle up as we uncover 10 countries where U.S. citizens are not allowed and reveal the stories you need to know before packing your bags. Let's dive in. 1. North Korea. North Korea, officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea (DPRK), has one of the most isolated and controlled environments in the world. The U.S. Department of State has a travel ban for North Korea, largely due to its restrictive government policies and the high security risks associated with visiting the country. American travelers face severe restrictions and are generally prohibited from entering North Korea unless they are part of a pre-approved tour arranged by a specialized travel agency. The government tightly controls all aspects of travel, and tourists are usually accompanied by government-appointed guides. The political climate is highly volatile, and there are significant risks involved due to the isolated nature of the regime. There have been cases where travelers faced serious consequences for minor infractions or misunderstandings, highlighting the risk of visiting. Additionally, diplomatic relations between North Korea and the U.S. are strained, contributing to the travel restrictions. 2. Iran. Travel to Iran for U.S. citizens is subject to numerous restrictions and complexities. The U.S. and Iran have had tense diplomatic relations for decades, which have led to stringent travel warnings. U.S. citizens who wish to travel to Iran must obtain a visa, but the process can be cumbersome and restrictive. The Iranian government closely monitors and controls travel, often requiring that visitors travel with authorized guides or through approved agencies. Issues related to security, political instability, and the potential for arrest or detention on charges related to political activities or espionage contribute to the high-risk environment. There are also concerns about the treatment of dual nationals and potential difficulties in resolving legal issues if they arise. 3. Syria. The ongoing civil war and security situation in Syria have made it one of the most dangerous destinations for U.S. travelers. The U.S. Department of State advises against all travel to Syria due to the high risk of violence, terrorism, and kidnapping. The conflict has led to widespread instability, with active combat zones in areas controlled by various factions. U.S. citizens face significant risks from bombings, attacks, and kidnappings. Furthermore, the U.S. government has imposed restrictions on travel to Syria as part of broader sanctions and policies aimed at addressing the humanitarian crisis and supporting international efforts to stabilize the region. Humanitarian organizations operating in Syria also face numerous challenges and dangers, highlighting the severity of the situation. 4. Libya. Libya has experienced ongoing conflict and instability since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi's regime in 2011. The security situation remains volatile, with frequent clashes between armed groups and a lack of centralized government control. U.S. citizens are strongly discouraged from traveling to Libya due to the high risk of violence, kidnapping, and other security threats. The U.S. Department of State has issued travel advisories against visiting Libya, and there are severe restrictions on consular services within the country. The situation is exacerbated by the presence of extremist groups and the general breakdown of law and order, making it a dangerous destination for travelers. 5. Venezuela. Venezuela is experiencing a severe economic and political crisis that has led to widespread shortages of essential goods and services, high levels of crime, and general instability. U.S. citizens face significant travel restrictions and advisories due to these conditions. The U.S. Department of State has issued warnings about traveling to Venezuela due to the risks of violence, crime, and the deteriorating humanitarian situation. Travelers may face difficulties accessing basic services and dealing with shortages, and there are concerns about arbitrary detention and the overall safety of U.S. citizens. The political climate and strained relations between the U.S. and Venezuelan governments add to the complexity of travel to the country. 6. Yemen. The security situation in Yemen is highly unstable due to ongoing armed conflict and humanitarian crisis. The U.S. Department of State advises against all travel to Yemen because of the severe risks associated with violence, terrorism, and kidnapping. The conflict has led to widespread destruction, a collapse of infrastructure, and significant challenges in accessing basic necessities. U.S. citizens face heightened risks from armed clashes, airstrikes, and attacks by various militant groups. The security environment is extremely hazardous, and there is a lack of reliable consular support or evacuation options. 7. South Sudan. South Sudan, the world's youngest country, has been plagued by conflict and instability since its independence in 2011. The U.S. Department of State advises against travel to South Sudan due to the ongoing violence, political instability, and humanitarian crisis. Armed conflict between rival factions and persistent insecurity make it a dangerous place for travelers. The humanitarian situation is dire, with widespread displacement, food shortages, and inadequate health care. Travel to South Sudan is further complicated by logistical challenges, lack of infrastructure, and limited consular services. 8. Burma, Myanmar. Burma, also known as Myanmar, has faced political turmoil and conflict in recent years. The U.S. Department of State has issued travel advisories due to the ongoing human rights abuses, violence, and political unrest. The military coup in February 2021 has further exacerbated the situation, leading to widespread protests, crackdowns, and a deteriorating security environment. U.S. citizens are advised to avoid non-essential travel to Myanmar due to the risk of arrest, violence, and other security concerns. 9. Russia. While not an outright ban, travel to Russia for U.S. citizens is heavily regulated and subject to significant challenges. The strained diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Russia have led to heightened security measures and restrictions. U.S. citizens may face difficulties obtaining visas, and there are concerns about surveillance and potential legal issues. The U.S. Department of State advises travelers to exercise caution due to the risks of arbitrary detention, especially in politically sensitive situations. 10. Cuba. Travel to Cuba for U.S. citizens is subject to specific regulations and restrictions, though not entirely banned. U.S. government policies and travel restrictions have made it challenging for American citizens to visit Cuba. There are restrictions on the types of travel allowed, and travelers must comply with regulations regarding purposes of visit, such as educational, religious, or humanitarian activities. The U.S. Department of State provides guidance on authorized travel categories and has imposed certain restrictions on tourism and business activities. That's a wrap on our list of countries where U.S. citizens face travel restrictions or bans. If you found this information insightful, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more engaging content. Got any questions or travel experiences to share? Drop a comment below, we'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for more exciting videos, and as always, safe travels wherever you go.